of 2000 that said very clearly they wanted to go to Iraq.
Right.
Long before 911.
Long before that.
911 was just the excuse to let them go there. You know.
Yeah, part of Illuminati? Part of Illuminati?
No.
Well,
No.
I don't know anything about the Illuminati, but I do know that there are groups of people in the world who have money and power and want to keep money and power, and they come under all different kinds of names and different kinds of groups, and at different times some get together, other times they fall out. You know, the whole concept of Republicans being off for a real long time from now on, I don't think it's going to work because Bush was very successful. He was like Mary Magdalene. You know, she said, you know, when she ended up pregnant, she said, God did it. That don't work twice. You know.
I like that.
And, you know, and I think that Bush was very successful. He got in on that hustle. But by the time he gets out of office, I think that whole thing going to fall apart. Because he cannot satisfy, no mainstream Republican these days can satisfy the religious right, because the religious right wants this to be a theocracy.
Absolutely.
With their concept of God being the prevailing one. And that is not, first of all, the concept of the vast majority of Americans. Most people in America haven't seen anything one way or the other. Got a small group yelling loud and making noise. But the average people in America are not anti-abortion. And the average people in America want peace in their life. They're not out for a cultural war. The right wants an all-out cultural war. Most people don't want a cultural war.
Based on what you said a minute ago, this far right is also is opposite from the founding fathers' concept.
Very much
You
so.
say they were deists.
Very much so.
That's opposite of what they pulling.
Yeah. I'm getting ready to show a little bit of this right now. The people of the Six Nations, also known by the French term Iroquois. So the word Iroquois was made with the French term. That's not what they called themselves. They called themselves the Haudenosaunee, meaning people building a long house. Located in the northeastern region of North America, originally the Six Nations was 5 and included the Mohawks, Oneidas, Onondagas, Cayugas, and Senecas. The Sixth Nation, the Tuscaroras, migrated into Iroquois country in the early 18th century. Together these people comprised the oldest living participatory democracy on earth. Together these people comprise the oldest participatory democracy on earth. Their story and governance, truly based on the consent of the governed, contains a great deal of life-promoting intelligence for those of us not familiar with this area of American history. The original United States representative democracy, fashioned by such central authors as Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson, drew much inspiration from this confederacy of nations. In our present day, we can benefit immensely in our quest to establish anew a government truly dedicated to all life's liberty and happiness, much as has been practiced by the Six Nations for over 800 years. Here's a drawing of Haudenosaunee representatives at the Continental Congress when they drew up the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. On June 11, 1776, while the question of independence was being debated, the visiting Iroquois chiefs were formally invited to the meeting hall of the Continental Congress. There a speech was delivered in which they were addressed as brothers and told of the delegates' wish that friendship between them would continue as long as the sun shall shine and the waters run. The speech also expressed the hope that the new Americans and the Iroquois act as one people and have but one heart. After this speech, the Onondaga chief requested permission to give Hancock an Indian name, as John Hancock. The Congress graciously consented, and so the president was renamed Caraduwa, or Great Tree. With the Iroquois chiefs inside the hall of the Congress on the eve of the American independence, the impact of Iroquois ideas on the founders is unmistakable. So they were actually present. That confederacy was put in place by someone that they call the peacemaker. I don't know if the person was actual or mythical, much like Jesus Christ. They said the person was born of a virgin. He told them they should have a period of self-rule, respect for women, and they established what was called the Great Law and the Great Council. And that was the basis that Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, and the rest of them used as a model to form the United States government. That never made, I had no conscience of that prior to about 4 or 5 months ago. I always thought that the founding fathers just made up that stuff all by themselves. And I think they were really very, very brilliant men because they had come from a despotic system with a king, and here they conceived this wonderful, beautiful system. Now it's clear that they borrowed the system. It's wonderful they used it, but they borrowed it from people that we were told were savages and had nothing to give.
Same thing said about Africa.
That's another pattern, by the way. When people steal something from you on this earth, normally they have to defame you so nobody knows you had it to give in the first place.
Yeah, you know.
It's like the Christians.
The Jews take all their religion out of Egypt. Egyptians become bad people. The Christians take their religion from the Jews. They start becoming anti-Semites. They steal stuff from us. You saw in the other slide that they had rice in Africa. The reason that some Africans were brought here to this country, because they knew how to cultivate rice. South Carolina rice. Okay? But of course, we didn't know that because we were told they were dumb savages. They were ignorant, natives. We didn't know that they were skilled in metalworking. All that metalworking down in Charleston, South Carolina, comes from Negroes who came out of Africa who knew how to work metal, iron and steel. Okay.
Question, Doctor.
Yes, back here.
Well, what's the significance of the Indian on top of the Capitol?
I don't know what the significance is, but I can find one now
Yeah.
because he should be on top of the Capitol,
It's a woman though.
in the Capitol, every place else, because
Yeah, it's a woman.
that's where the government came from.
Right.
Exactly.
Oh.
Exactly.
Okay.
Bob,
They say it's
Yes,
illegal.
back behind me.
It's the Indian.
Yes.
you were reading that passage right before you showed this picture, and you said the thing about, I don't know who wrote it, but about one of the oldest democracy in the world. Didn't that come out of Africa?
They call it the oldest participatory democracy.
Okay.
That word was highlighted, participatory, because they had a particular system where everybody was allowed to participate. So it's even more of a democracy than we have right now. What we have right now is an oligarchy. We don't have everybody having the ability to vote and have freedom. We have a group that votes on our behalf. When you vote in the election, you vote for electors. The electors then elect the president. They can choose who you ask them to choose on a statewide basis,
Or someone else.
or they can choose somebody else.
And they've done it many times.
And they've done it several times, that's right. So we don't have a participatory democracy in this country. We have an oligarchy. We are ruled by a group of people who run the government on our behalf. What the Iroquois had was a participatory democracy. Everybody was involved.
And also, in a true democracy, the person who gets the second most votes is going to be the vice president.
Yes.
That would make sense, wouldn't it?
What's wampum?
Money. Indian money.
I found out reading this article, wampum was actually a treaty. When they signed a treaty with you, they designed a special beaded belt. Beaded into the belt were objects that indicated the nature of the treaty. Just like kente cloth in Africa. Kente cloth in Africa is not just style. In the weaving of the cloth is a message as to what that talks about. See, again, many people have ways of expressing themselves that's not just written out in letters, which is another problem that we had because they said that certain people were ignorant because they could not write, when in fact they had methods of writing that did not use script, but used symbols instead, such as the wampum belt and such as kente cloth. But you want to know how to spell Haudenosaunee, do you know that?
Yeah. And I heard that all African design on materials mean something.
Yes.
Yeah. You just wear it for decoration. You might wearing something you don't know what you're wearing.
Help us up.
You fronting for style.
The first book on etiquette comes out of Africa. The use of cosmetics comes out of Africa. Cough drops specifically come out of Africa. Deodorants, use of fans goes so far back in prehistory we don't know when it started. Gloves can be traced to 1500 BCE, 3,500 years ago. Use of the handshake we traced back to Egypt, 2800 BCE. Use of mirrors goes back into prehistory. The taboo attached to walk on the ladder goes back to 3000 BCE. Probably because when you form a ladder against a wall, it forms a sacred triangle. The 3, 4, 5 isosceles sacred triangle. Indoor lighting, Africa. Marbles used in the game, Africa. Use of wedding rings, Africa. Use of medications. You've already seen all the papyri talk about all the medical treatments they were doing. They had medications to go along with it. Pancakes,
I'm really African.
rattles. Use of a toothbrush. The use of wigs goes back to Africa. No black women glad to hear that. Thumbs up and thumbs down signal goes back to that prehistory in Africa. Now, around 2,000, around 120,000 years ago, Homo sapiens emerged as a new species, most likely in Central East Africa, and from there migrated to the Middle East, South Africa, and Europe. Central Asia and finally the New World. To reach the Bering Straits from Africa by 14,000 years ago, humans would have had to wander no more than 1 mile every 8 years. Coming to the Ice Age cooling and the amount, the timing of Ice Age cooling and the amount they lowered ocean levels specifies the geological periods in which it was possible to migrate to land masses otherwise separated by water. In other words, years ago, they could walk from Siberia across to Alaska over a land bridge. That's now on the water once,
I have a picture of the whole world when it was one.
Yes, that's called Pangea. Very, very early in the Earth's history, when there's only one land mass, before things are separated and moved apart. We live on a living planet. We don't see it as living because we're here such a short time. We're talking now about a planet that's been here for billions of years. And we're talking about humans having been here for millions of years. And other creatures now being here for, for countless, hundreds of millions of years. Brother over here had a book. Show me that book you had before. Here we go. Giant Book of Questions and Answers. And in this book, I probably won't find the right page, but in this book there's a diagram that shows different animals and things when they came into being, and it shows very clearly that dinosaurs came into being hundreds of millions of years ago, and by the time they left out and man came in, it was a 60 million year gap, which is just what I had said before. Find that particular page, brother, so I can show it to him. I don't know where it is.
So before the world was separated, the land mass, what was it called?
Pangea.
How you spell it?
P-A-N.
GEA.
I think there's another A in there, I believe it. Probably P-A-N-A-G-E-A, but I'll find out for you and tell you next week. I talk so good, I don't spell that good. There's a very simple map talking about dispersal of people from Central East Africa, all through the world, all the continents. As you see, they're not in Northern Europe. They're not in the part of the globe over here. In Northern Europe, they're not up here. They're not up here because during the time we're talking about, hundreds of thousands of years ago, the ice was down as far as Spain, and so they had to go into Asia. They go across the area between Africa and Asia, move all through the more southern climes up into the north of Asia, and then only about 20, 30,000 years ago, after the ice has melted, the folks really begin to move into Europe. Because Baba has already told us, some moved in about 50,000 years ago, got caught behind ice.
Yes.
And those are the ones who went through the phenotypical changes to become white people. Brother Leon, before you came, we looked at some articles that was in Washington Post on the papers the last couple of days that talked about the fact they found a gene now for that predisposed is supposed to be white.
Do we know why people wander? Did they wander because usually, as it was indicated before, wandering usually they wander because they didn't have resources. Did they wander because they didn't know how to domesticate animals at that time and they found out later?
I'm not sure we know. There's a natural, and with most people, there's a natural wanderlust just to wander and see what they, find something new.
Doc, there's a book called Iceman Inheritance.
Yes, Michael Bradley.
Have you read that?
Yes.
Does he talk about this kind of thing?
Michael Bradley deals primarily with psychology. It's called, the title is The Iceman Inheritance. I'm missing a few words. It talks about the Europeans' racism, sexism, being based upon that cold ice age.
Something about aggression.
Yes, aggression.
So, yeah.
Aggression, racism, and sexism based upon having grown up in that cold ice box. Having to develop a me first, every man for himself type consciousness. The next session, which will be next year, we will begin to talk about what happens when folks move out of Africa and move into other areas of the world. We'll go into more depth about the development of phenotypical changes, white skin, slant eyes, and Oriental people, and things like that. But I think by now we've answered the two questions we had for today. We now know about the achievements in Africa. Almost everything that we deal with today has its origin in Africa. We were not told that. We were left to assume automatically, because it was not Africa. It might have been Greece, Rome, some other place. But now we know for sure that humans come from Africa. All our basic skills, without Africa, there'd be no humans on this planet. Brother Graham, thanks for coming.
Before we close today, could we speak to your definition of Middle East? And I bring that up because I think earlier we discussed the fact that I mentioned that the State Department lists the Middle East as the top part of Africa. In fact, their demographic book
Yeah,
has that.
Africa's gotten such a bad. If you go to the library and you try to find books on Africa, very often you can't find them. Because what you have to do, you have to go to the Oriental section. They've degraded Africa to the point they don't even give Africa its own status. We, along with Asians. They've Occidental studies, which is the West. The Oriental studies, that's the East. And nothing but Africa. When I first saw the term Middle East, I was confused. Because I didn't, my mind's East to what?
Right.
Most people don't challenge anything, which is very good. My brother Grandma brought the point about the illusions. It's important that we begin we don't